We're going to talk about the 6 natural regions of Arkansas, but I wanted first to start by mentioning a much simpler geographical split in the state. If we were to draw a diagonal line that basically cuts the state in half from west to east, it creates 2 sections known as the highlands and the lowlands. As you might guess, most of our mountains are in the highlands and most of our flatland is in the lowlands. It's also important to keep in mind that the land we know today as Arkansas hasn't always been the same. On this drawing at the left, taken from the Arkansas Heritage booklet that I'm sharing with you in Educator Resources, we see that rivers we typically associate with Arkansas have shifted over time. Now this outline is really just for our reference. Today we know that the Mississippi River is the easternmost border of our state. However, it hasn't always been like that. Rivers are living, and like all living things, they change. The drawing on the left shows just about where 3 rivers ran during the Quaternary period, which began with the Ice Age about 1.8 million years ago. If you're looking at the map or the diagram on the right, that would start in the Cenozoic era during the Pleistocene period of about 1.8 million years ago. So the drawing shows where these rivers ran, and we're talking about a time period with giant mammals, saber-toothed tigers, and humans. The map shows that the Mississippi River, which now, according to this diagram, is kind of in the central eastern part of the state, and the Ohio River Valley runs kind of where we associate the Mississippi River with today. But these 2 rivers cut valleys, and dust accumulated in between them, eventually helping to create Crowley's Ridge. Over time, flooding has changed the shifting of land and, of course, the rivers. At this time, the Ohio River is actually nowhere near Arkansas. It empties into the Mississippi River in Cairo, Illinois. So that's quite a change. The first region we'll talk about among the natural regions in the state of Arkansas are the Ozark Mountains. Actually, the mountains are really plateaus, which are kind of like mountains with flat tops. The tops are flat because of the erosion that took place over these mountains as they were pushed up as water receded. So we have these horizontal layers of rock that are made of limestone and dolomite in the Ozark Mountain area. The rocks there are about 300 million years old, the oldest rocks that you can find in the state. Mostly small streams float through the Ozark Mountains. The biggest rivers there in that area are the Buffalo and White Rivers. The early people there were bluff dwellers. They sheltered under bluff overhangs, and later the region was occupied by the Osage. Farming was really tough there because of the terrain. It was really hard to get up the sides of these plateaus, although it was flat enough to build a house on up top. Also, rockiness made the land difficult to farm. And socialization, for the same reasons, was also tough. The terrain was just really difficult to travel to visit people. The Ouachita Mountains are vertical or tilted layers of rock from kind of this big squeeze that happened that pushed the rocks up. And think of squeezing a tube of toothpaste or a cake decorator bag. As you squeeze, everything just kind of pops up out of the end. So that's how the Ouachita Mountains were formed. They're 120 miles smashed to approximately 60 miles. So they run east to west, and they have sharp ridges. The rocks in the Ouachita Mountains are sandstone and shale. Sandstone became sandy soil, which was good for pine trees. In the southern slopes, you have warmer temperatures, and pines grow well there. In the northern slopes, it's a little cooler, and hardwoods grow well there. There are some wide valleys in the Ouachita Mountains, first occupied by the Caddo Native Americans. who hunted and fished, and they lived in the valleys where they also practiced farming. Tourism came about early on in the Ouachita Mountains because of the hot springs, not necessarily Hot Springs, the city, but because of the springs, the mineral springs. Also, novaculite was an important tourist attraction, especially during Native American times, when that was really a resource for the economy of the Native Americans in the Ouachita Mountain region. Also, crystals drew in a lot of people for tourism. So there were 45 to 70 springs from Hot Springs Mountain, but as the city grew, all but 2 had to be covered to avoid flooding. The Arkansas River Valley is actually between the Ozark and the Ouachita Mountain Range, and for that reason it shares traits from both areas. It has some flat-topped small mountains, which are Ozarkish, and some folded ridges that are Ouachita-ish. There are rocks in the area that also show both regions. Mount Magazine is in the Arkansas River Valley, and it is the highest point in the state. There are also mesas in the Arkansas River Valley, which a mesa is a flat-topped elevation with steep sides in a horizontal landscape. So basically, those mesas were connected to the Ozarks before erosion. The rocks in the Arkansas River Valley are shale, and the early settlers were able to farm and travel thanks to the river and thanks to the abundance of good fertile soil around the river. The coastal plain region, or the Gulf coastal plain region, was actually once the coast. The rolling lowland of this area was formerly covered by the Gulf of Mexico. It has pines for timber. Also, it has a bottomland hardwood forest as well. In southwest Arkansas, there are wide rivers, the Red River and the Ouachita, and there are also blackland prairies from Arkadelphia to Texarkana, which are very fertile. In terms of soil, the top layer is black, the second layer is chalk, which is actually shells from the Gulf. This area was settled by the Caddo up through the Ouachitas, and novaculite was very important to them as far as industry and as far as making their own tools go. Pine and timber industry also grew in this area, and also there was good pasture land and some mining, especially bauxite for aluminum, and also mining for oil. In the Mississippi alluvial plain, or the Delta, we're talking about the eastern one-third of the state, which was also once covered by the Gulf. The White, Mississippi, Arkansas, and even the Ohio rivers have run through the area at some point. Oxbow lakes are in the area, which are these U-shaped lakes formed by a wide river that narrow and then cut off a region. You can see cypress trees in those. Also in the Delta, you can find persimmon trees, which are often used for golf club heads, also for eating. You can find pecan tree orchards in the area as well. There are also prairie grasses. The Grand Prairie is in the Mississippi alluvial plain area, and that region is pretty much the duck capital. We're talking about Stuttgart in that area. It's also rich in agriculture, and when we think about the slave days in Arkansas, this is the area that we predominantly think about because of the plantations in that rich delta soil, fertile soil area, and all of the cotton that was grown there. And last but not least, the final natural region of the state that we'll talk about is Crowley's Ridge. It's the smallest region of the state. It's 200 miles long, 150 feet high, and 12 miles wide at the widest point. It was formed between the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, as we talked about on our first slide. The wind from the Ozarks continues to blow over, and dust continues to erode this soil that actually makes up Crowley's Ridge. It's called Loess. It's spelled L-O-E-S-S, but it's pronounced Loess. Put that in your slide so you know the pronunciation. In that area, you see white walnut trees and tulip trees and some small streams. You can actually visibly see that if you're driving through the delta, which is generally flat, you can visibly see the raised ridge of Crowley's Ridge. And that wraps up the state's 6 natural regions.